Cat Hair Podcast. My name is Nikki. I'm also known as Knitting with Cat Hair on Instagram and Cat Hair Knitting on Ravelry. I'm coming to you from Sudbury, Ontario, Canada, which lies atop the traditional lands of the Otagamishing Anishinaabe people, where I live with my family and our 5 cats. And this is primarily a knitting podcast. However, sometimes I talk about some of the other crafts that I'm getting into, such as cross stitch, crochet, and natural dyeing. So welcome to all new viewers, and a big welcome back to all returning viewers. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to spend with me. It's a gorgeous day here, so I'm taking this opportunity to film outside, so just a heads up, there may be some background noise from the neighbors, dogs, etc., but hopefully it won't be too distracting. Right, so first off, I thought I've had so many new subscribers lately that I thought I'd take a few minutes to do a quick introduction to myself, because I don't think I've done that in quite a while. So yeah, figured that was a good idea. So as I mentioned, my name's Nikki. By day, I am a species at risk specialist with the provincial government here in Ontario, which at one point, truthfully, was my dream job, but sadly has become mostly a desk job as of late. Yeah, it's hard. But I used to get out and looking for critters. For those who don't know, a species at risk is one that's listed as endangered, threatened, special concern. There's various different levels of concern around the species. So yeah, I used to get out looking for them and meeting with people on the landscape and helping them avoid impacts to species at risk in their habitat. And now, like I said, it's mostly a desk job, unfortunately. But on the plus side, not that it's a good thing that we have so many species at risk. I think we have like 247 or something like that in Ontario. Don't quote me on the number, but there's quite a few. And so the good thing is that every day I'm learning something new about a new species. Yeah, that's the best part of my job, I'd say, is learning something new. And yeah, so species at risk are very near and dear to my heart. So that's what I do by day, and obviously by night and weekend and every other moment of my lifetime is spent doing crafting. So I learned how to knit when I think it was about 8 years old. My mom and my grandma taught me how to knit, and I think they started me on, the quintessential garter stitch scarf that I don't believe I ever finished. Then I actually developed more of an interest in cross stitch when I was kind of a child, so 10 years, 12 years, and that carried through until I was in my 20s. And then I revisited knitting for a little bit and didn't stick with it for too long. Put it to the side again, and then picked it up again, mostly after my daughter was born. I knit a few little small things like hats and accessories and stuff like that. And then I would say in 2017, that's kind of when the obsession started. I discovered the breadth of Ravelry. I discovered hand-dyed yarns, and yeah, it just became quite the obsession. So now I can't imagine any day that doesn't involve knitting. Although once in a while, due to circumstances, it happens, but very rarely. Yeah, so, and I would also say that since 2017, my tastes have changed a lot. So originally I started off, like a lot of knitters do, really, really loving all of the bright colors and delving into all the indie dyers and stuff like that. And over time, I found that through experience, I would say, with superwash yarns and some of the things that have happened. So most of the garments that I knit in the beginning were with superwash yarns, and they eventually ended up stretching on me to the point where they don't fit nicely anymore. I don't even wear them. And so I really started exploring more rustic yarns, so non-superwash wools, and fell head over heels. And so that's where my love now lies, with all the non-superwash yarns. And especially, I love trying different breeds of sheep fibers and stuff like that. There's so much to try and to learn about. And yes, that's why I love knitting so much, is all of the wonderful techniques that you can learn from it. Yeah, so that is kind of a bit of my history in knitting. And with regards to podcasting, sorry, there's a pigeon who's come to join the conversation. With regards to podcasting, I started in, I think it was February of 2020, and it was something that I just wanted to do to kind of embrace my fear of public speaking, which was one of the kind of main goals. And the second goal was to establish that community sense and to be able to share my passion with others who are also passionate for knitting. So yeah, that's where my podcast started. And yeah, it was a very awkward beginning. Very awkward beginning. Not that it's not awkward now, but very awkward in the beginning. But I've learned so much along the way, and that sense of community is so amazing. So if any of you out there are kind of considering, whether or not it might be worthwhile starting your own podcast, highly recommend it. Highly recommend it. It's wonderful. I've learned so much. I've connected with so many different people. Sorry, there's our pigeon friend. And yeah, it's just been so wonderful. So I just highly encourage you to do so. Okay, so I think that's a little bit about me, and I will stop there. If you have any questions, as always, feel free to leave a comment down below and I'll answer you. Okay, so a few admin things up front. We have another year of Marie Wallin make-along happening over on Instagram. It started August 1st, so today is September 2nd, so it's been running for about a month, and we've already had several projects entered in. You can follow along with the hashtag, and yeah, it's been really fun. So the another year of Marie Wallin Mal, because crochet is welcome as well. I mentioned this before, but it started August 1st and it will run for an entire year, so until August 1st, 2023. And you're welcome to join in with any whips that you have. Prizes, however, will be drawn from the FO hashtag. I'll put it here over on Instagram. So you do have to finish your project. I think at this point, that's kind of the decision. But yeah, you're more than welcome to join in with any whips or to start a new project now. And as I mentioned, any Marie Wallin pattern works. It could be an accessory. She has some cushions. She has, I think she even has blankets, mittens, anything, sweaters, whatever. Doesn't matter. As long as it's by Marie Wallin, it qualifies. So yeah, I highly encourage you to participate. It's been really fun. And like I mentioned before, we have a Slack group for the Knitting with Cat Hair podcast group. And then within that group, we also have a thread or a channel, we call it, for the Marie Wallin Make Along, where we're all sharing our inspiration and encouraging each other to cast on new things, perhaps. So yeah, I always put the link down below to our Slack group, and you can find it over on Instagram as well. And I think that's it for admin things. So let's move on to the knitting chat. Sorry, hopefully you can't hear that. There's people talking next door. Just hope it's not too loud. So I'll start with what I'm wearing. Today I am wearing, it's called the Threadbare top. And I'll just stand up real quick. It's just a really simple cotton shirt that I made. I can't remember if it was last year or the year before. And it is a kit. It was a kit I got from We Are Knitters. And so it uses their Pima cotton, We Are Knitters Pima cotton, held double, I believe. Yes, held double. So it's actually quite like a substantial sweater. It's quite heavy, but because it's 100% cotton, it's very breathable. And yeah, it's cute. I like it. So that is what I am wearing. And let's jump into works in progress. Okay, so I will start with an update on my daffodil, which is a pattern by Marie Wallin. It's found in her springtime collection. So I'm just getting my notes out because I have a few things I don't want to forget to mention. Oh, firstly, it's housed in this little adorable fox bag by My Needle Crafts. Yes, my needle crafts. And I should mention also, firstly, not sponsored by anybody. Just talk about what I love on this podcast. Also, secondly, anything that I mention can be found down below in the description. Links to shops, to Ravelry project pages, all those kinds of things down below. So Daffodil is found in this lovely springtime collection book. I'll pop in a picture so you can see what the finished sweater looks like. So it's knit bottom up in pieces and then seamed. It's a drop shoulder construction. And truthfully, I really wish that I would have converted to knitting it in the round because it is taking me so long. I mean, I still enjoy it. It's very enjoyable knit. But it's just taking me so long. So this is what I have so far. So the progress keeper there shows you where I was last time. So I did quite a few inches on it. This is the back panel. You start with the back. So it's the longest piece because before you start doing anything, because you literally knit up the back and then end up doing a little bit of neck and shoulder shaping, I think. So I think I still have like 10 centimeters to go before I start the shaping. But yeah, it's a very enjoyable knit. It's a series of lace and cable panels all the way across. And what I love, I've mentioned this before, but I really love this detail that the ribbing ties in with the cables. Isn't that cool? I think that's a really nice detail. So yeah, that's what I have so far. And I'm knitting mine out of Holst Garn Super Soft. Oh, I didn't bring it with me. I have a cone of it, so I'm not gonna run out. There's no fear of me running out of yarn. I think there's like 3,100 yards on the cone or something like that. Anyways, it's a huge number. So I'm knitting it out of Holst Garn Super Soft, and as I mentioned, I'm holding it single-stranded. It is a pretty thin yarn, but apparently it plumps up after with washing. So, and I'm using a US 2, which is a 2.75 millimeter needle to knit this thing. And that's also why it's taking so long, because it's knit on such a tiny needle, and my gauge is still too loose, if you can believe it. So yeah. That is the update on my daffodil. Oh, and I'm knitting what did I do for size? I think I'm knitting the size extra large, which accommodates a 44 to 46 inch bust. So I have a 45 inch bust for reference. And that's that. Okay, next update, we'll keep with the Marie Wallins here. Get them done. So I'll give you an update on my Samphrey. So the Samphrey is a pattern that is found in her Shetland book. You can also buy these individual patterns as individual on Ravelry as well. I'm pretty sure all of them are available individual. So it is an all-over colorwork sweater, fair isle style. So only two colors per row. The pattern is for knitting flat, bottom up, and then seaming. And then for this one, I have converted to knitting in the round, and that is based completely on my experience with my chestnut cardigan, which is also by Marie Wallin, that I finished fairly recently, and my distaste for seaming color work pieces together. So I've converted to knitting in the round. Progress keeper. So that turquoise progress keeper is where I was last time I showed this. I've done about half of the green section. So it basically alternates between this pink and orange and this green, turquoise and green sections up. So I did a couple inches, and I've mentioned this before, but I am doing some modifications to this pattern in addition to knitting it in the round. I'm also, to avoid the bulging that happens at the bottom after you knit this large panel of ribbing, instead of reducing the number of stitches, which Andrea Fruity Knitting did, I just decreased or started with smaller needle sizes. So I did the ribbing, I think on a US 2, which is a 2.75 millimeter needle. And then I switched, when I started here, I switched to a 1.5, a US 1.5, which is a 2.5 millimeter needle. Then I went up to a US 2, which is a 2.75. And now I've gone up to a US 3, 3.25 millimeter needle, and I'll just finish the body on that size. And I don't think you can really tell. Like, yes, you can see a little bit of gentle, like, increasing. But the pattern itself, I don't think has really been affected by it. So yeah. And I've tried it on briefly just to make sure that it fits, because I was worried it might be too small. I can definitely get it on, so that's good news. And the other thing is that I'm knitting, I'm actually, just based on my gauge, when I did my gauge swatch, I'm actually knitting a size smaller than I would normally knit. And that's just because my gauge is looser. So it should work out to be the exact same size as I should have been knitting. So yes, so that is that. And oh, I just love the colors in this. They bring me such joy. And I'm knitting this up out of the called for yarn, which is Jamieson's Shetland Spindrift in 14 different colors. These are all the colors here. It's a lovely rustic wool. I really love it. That definitely softens up with washing. I'm just gonna check my notes and make sure there wasn't anything else I wanted to say. Yes, there is. Okay, forgot to mention this. So this time I've also learned from when I made my cardigan. I am weaving in my ends as I go, because there is nothing worse to me than having to get to the end of a project, you know, getting all excited about it, finishing it, and then having to weave in 11 billion ends in the end. So here I am weaving in as I go. So you can see these strands here. They just need to be cut afterwards. I've woven in every single end this time. And the way that I'm doing that is using a technique that Andrea of Fruity Knitting used for, I think it was for her Samphrey, she showed it. Basically what you do is that once you are ready to switch colors, so I'm switching at my beginning of round. That's when I start knitting with the new color. Oh, I also switched my beginning of round to be under the arm, I think. Yes, just so you know. It's just so the color work isn't so, like the jog isn't so visible. But yeah, so when I'm about to get ready to switch to 2 new colors, about 10 stitches before my beginning of round, I'll start catching the new colors every second stitch. So hopefully this makes sense. If I'm doing 2 colors, I will catch, you know, the one color every second stitch and the other color, the alternating every second stitch. So I'm always catching for the 10 stitches, but alternating colors. And so that just weaves in the end. And then when I get to my beginning of round, I cut the yarns I was using, the 2 colors I'm finished using, and I weave those in as I'm starting to use the next new colors over about 10 stitches. So same thing. So 10 stitches on either side of the marker, and this is what it looks like. So there's my beginning of round, and you can see I have columns of catch. Sometimes I go a little more, sometimes a little less. It's not perfect, but yeah. So that's how I'm catching my floats as I go. If I can remember to do it, I'll link the episode where Andrea of Fruity Knitting talks about her method, and you can see her demonstration of it. So I think that's it. I've mentioned this before. There is a ton of float catching in this pattern. I think every single row, I don't think there's a single row where I haven't had to catch floats. So if you are going to make this, just be prepared for lots of float catching, which isn't a big deal. If you don't know what float catching is, I'm sorry. I just assume everyone knows everything, and that's really unfair of me. If you don't know what float catching is, basically when you're doing color work, if you're going to go for a longer stretch using one single color, you want to bring that second color along for the ride, essentially. So what you do is, what I do is anything that's more than 5 stitches, I will catch. So it just, basically you're just wrapping the secondary color around the first color and catching it on the back. I don't know if I can show you how. So this is what the floats look like. And so if I do a long one, if I'm using the same color for a really long stretch, I'll just catch the secondary color and then continue on with that color. Anyways, there's lots of videos on float catching. The only thing you need to be mindful of when you're float catching is that you don't catch your floats in the exact same spot in subsequent rows. So let's say I caught my float on stitch number 5 here. Let's say I caught it here. On the next row, when I'm catching my floats, let's say I have to do it again. I do not want to catch it on stitch number 5 again. I want to catch it on stitch number 4 or stitch number 6, whatever works. But you want to stagger them, because what happens if you line all of your float catching up in a row, you actually start to get a seam where you can actually see the color shining through in a line. And you don't want that. You want it to look seamless. So just a word of warning for float catching. Okay, and I think that's it for my Samphrey. Yeah. Okay, next up, I'll give you an update on my Treysta, which is a pattern by Jennifer Steingass. I'm knitting it out of this Lina magazine, issue 3, I think. Yep, issue 3. Although you can buy the pattern individually on Ravelry. I'll pop in a picture that shows what the sweater looks like. It's a Colorwork sweater, yoked Colorwork sweater. I'm actually converting it to be a cardigan, and this is my first time taking a sweater pattern and converting it to a cardigan involving steeking. I've never steeked a garment before, so this is my first time, and yeah, hopefully it's going to turn out okay. I think it's going to turn out okay. So do I have a progress keeper? There's my progress keeper, my little butterfly, or bee, sorry. That's where I was last time, so I've done a lot more of the body. I think I'm a few more inches away, and then I'll start the ribbing for the bottom. And then I just have to pick up and do the sleeves. So yeah, this is the Treysta. And you can see, as I mentioned, there's some steek stitches that I've added in, 5 steek stitches, 2 purl, 1 knit, 2 purl, and I'm going to cut. Steeking is where you cut your knitting. I'm going to cut down the middle where that knit stitch row is, or column, and open it up, and it will become a cardigan. And then you have to fold under the steeked edges and sew them down, and pick up and put a button band on. So, yeah. It's pretty mindless. It's now that I'm at the body. And I was debating whether or not to put Colorwork at the bottom as per the pattern, and I've decided not to. I'm still not sure about the sleeves. I might put it at the edge of the sleeves, but I'm not, like where the cuffs are, but I'm not sure yet. I might just leave it brown. And I'm knitting this up out of lovely Letlopi, which is an Icelandic Aran weight wool yarn out of 4 different colors. Dark brown is called Acorn Heather. This light color is called Light Beige Heather. There's this yellowy green color that's called Golden Heather, and then a really light brown here that is called Oatmeal Heather. And yeah, it's going to be so nice for autumn. I think, yeah, needed a cardigan, another cardigan, like a non-fancy one, one I can just throw on. So that's that. I am making the, what size am I making? I think I'm making the second largest size in the pattern that I have. I think it's extra, actually I think it's an extra large. Let me just double check here. Yes, it is. It's an XXL. No, that's right. That's what I started knitting, and then it was too small because it's a pretty fitted, as far as sweaters go. It's more of a fitted sweater, and I realized that I wanted a cardigan, which you need room underneath it, right? To like wear over top of, like to layer it. So I had to go with the largest size, which is on on this pattern. I don't know if it's been expanded, but on this one, it's an XXXL with a finished bust circumference of 49.75 inches. As I mentioned, I have a 45-inch bust, so that gives me almost an extra 5 inches of room underneath. Yes, because I had to restart. I mentioned that last time. Forgot about that. In terms of needle sizes, can't even remember what needle sizes I'm using. Let's have a look and see. Okay, I'm using a US 6 for the Colorwork, which is a 4mm, and a US 4 for the non-Colorwork, which is a 3.5mm. So I went up 2 sizes for the Colorwork. As per usual, that's what I have to do to keep my gauge the same. I guess I'm a tight Colorwork knitter. So yeah, that's my Treysta. I'm excited to get that done. Anything else I wanted to say? I don't think so. I think I covered everything else. Oh yeah, I mentioned this in the last one. I'll mention it again. But if you're thinking of making the Treysta, there are points in the pattern where you do have to knit with 3 colors in one single round. So that's just something to be mindful of. It's not impossible. It's just a little more tricky. That's all. But it's totally doable. Okay. Just gonna move up a bit here. So what else? Oh, okay. So now we're into new cast-ons. And this shouldn't be too much of a surprise because I did show the yarn last episode and mentioned that I would be casting this on. But I went ahead and cast on another Ranunculus. And this time I'm making what I'm calling my autumn version. So I've already made a spring version, which I gifted to my lovely mother because it looks so fabulous on her. I've also made a summer version, which I wear all the time. And in fact, I was wearing it yesterday when I was out shopping with my daughter, and I got a compliment on it. Actually, someone asked me where they could buy it. And I said, oh, I made this. I was so proud. That doesn't happen very often. So yeah, it's kind of exciting. So I figured, you know, I wear my Ranunculus all the time, that, you know, it's not a waste to make another 2, 3, 4, 5 of them. They're just so wearable, and you can make them look so different depending on the yarn choices and the needle sizes that you use. So I am knitting my autumn Ranunculus. I've cast on a few days ago. I did some swatching and then just ended up casting on. It's hard to show here. You can't really see the pattern. There we go. I have not restarted from the beginning, but I've had to frog back twice already because of these little guys here. This pattern little stitches. I got cocky and I'm like, I've made this twice before. I don't need to look at the videos. I'm good. And it turns out I wasn't good. So she has some written instructions in the pattern itself on how to do some of these textured stitches. And I'm like, oh, I understand what she's saying. Totally, I got this. No, I didn't have it at all. So I had to rip back not once, but twice because I messed it up twice. And then finally said, maybe I should go and look at those tutorial videos now. And yes, so highly recommend if you're going to be knitting the Ranunculus, there are a slew of tutorial videos right on the Ravelry page with like linked from the Ravelry page, the design page for the Ranunculus. Highly recommend looking at those before attempting because the written instructions don't exactly match the physical, like the video, like how she does it. Anyways, just don't do what I did. Avoid ripping back. Yeah, so now I've got them correctly. And I am knitting this out of this gorgeous Knitted In. I think this color is called Varflood. It's one of their colorways from last year. But it's this gorgeous, multi-dimensional honey yellow. Just screams autumn to me. Love it. It smells so nice and sheepy. And I did swatch with a single strand of Newton, and it just wasn't working for me. It was too see-through, I guess. I mean, I could have gone down in needle sizes, but I have so many projects that are on US 2.75 millimeter needles right now. I really don't want any more. I really just want to get some of those off my needles so that I can start knitting other things. But yeah, so I didn't want to get another like super tight, like small gauge, whatever pattern. So I'm knitting mine on US 9s, and I'm holding US 9 is a 5.5 millimeter needle. And I am holding the strands double. So there's 2 strands here. I've gone ahead, and the way that I like to use my Newton is to roll it into a ball, double-stranded or triple-stranded or whatever, however many strands I'm using. I just find it doesn't break as easily once it's kind of paired, I guess. So I've gone ahead and rolled up a ball of a double strand, and I just knit from that. And Newton, for those who don't know, is an unspun Swedish fiber by Honor Akar. And I'm sure you've probably heard about it, but it's dyed in small batches. And once they make a color, you kind of can't get the same color again. So if you are thinking of purchasing any Newton, I highly recommend buying more than you think you'll need, just because you may not be able to get it again. You won't be able to get it again from them. You might have to get it in a D-stash or something. So anyways, yeah. But I will say that in my experience, so I've always bought 500 grams of a single colorway as a sweater quantity for my size, 45-inch bust, extra large generally size, and I've always had leftovers. Like, I've never used up all of the yarn. So it does go a long way. In fact, with the exception of my Wild Posy that I made using 3 strands, that one was cutting it close to the 500 mark, but I think it was like 480 grams. All my others have had a ton of leftovers. All my others. Knit one other. Thinking of my blow-to-lopy sweater. No, my other one had a ton of leftovers. And this will have a ton of leftovers too. The Ranunculus really doesn't take a lot of yarn to make. Okay, so that's about the yarn. I've talked about the needle sizes. Truthfully, the reason that I'm knitting this on a US 9 5.5 millimeter as opposed to a US 8 5 millimeter, because I did swatch with the US 8 and kind of liked that fabric better. But truthfully, the reason I'm using US 9s is because of my chug set. So I have the full set of Chaogu needles, and those who have it know that they come with different cords for the larger sizes and then cords for the smaller sizes of needles. And all of my cords for the smaller sizes, with the exception of a really long extended cord that I bought for shawls basically, are in use, and I didn't want to knit magic loops. All of my larger sized needle cords are not in use. None of them are. So I'm like, oh, I get to choose which size I want to use. This is perfect. So if I go with the US 9s, because the cutoff point is US 8s for the smaller size cords, US 9 and above are for the larger cords. So that's why I'm doing that. Purely just because all of my needles are in use, which is ridiculous, by the way. That means I have way too many projects potentially on the go. I really need to get some off the needles. But yeah, this will be a quick knit. It's Ranunculus. I'm part of an Instagram chat group for podcasters. And recently we were chatting in there. A few of us had purchased some unspun yarns. Some people who haven't knit with it before, and we were talking about actually I think it was Selma of Little Big Knits was the one who mentioned it, but she suggested, you know, maybe we should do a cowl. That'd be fun, like a totally informal, you know, knit with unspun yarns cowl. And so yeah, that was decided we'd do that. So you may hear several podcasters talk about this. It's called the Unspun Heroes cowl. I'll put the hashtag here. You can follow along over on Instagram, and you're more than welcome to join in as well. It's not just for us. Yeah. So if you haven't knit with unspun yarn before and you've been itching to try, now might be a great time because you'll have a big community of people hopefully to knit along with. And or if you're a seasoned unspun knitting person, it's still fun to participate, right, in something. So yeah, I don't know if there's going to be prizes. We haven't really decided. It might just be you know, just the sense of community. Yeah, so that's fun. So I'm knitting this up for that. And that started, I should give you some details. That started September 1st, and it will run until, I believe it's January 31st. So you have several months to get that done. And yeah, I hope you'll join in with us. Oh, and the ranunculus, I should say, so since the last time I knit it, I noticed the pattern is now, there used to be like, you know, it was a one-size-fit-all pattern, which doesn't fit all. And then she, Midori Hirose, is the designer. She came out with an extended pattern for larger bust size that basically like told you what to do when you get to a certain section number in the original pattern. You would like do some increases or whatever to make it fit a larger bust sizes. And so there were two patterns you had to kind of look at one time, like switch back and forth, which was kind of a pain, to be honest, but that's how I knit my summer version. And she's since come out and combined all in one, so it's all there. It's made it so much easier, I've noticed, with the updates. So yeah, so it's not just for, you know, one size fits all anymore, which is great. Really like to see designers doing that. Okay, just trying to think what else I have. Okay, so now I will talk about, I don't know if this is like a fixing mending segment, I guess. As I mentioned, I have a summer ranunculus. And originally when I made it, I didn't finish the sleeves. I just left them as a rolled kind of hem on this, or cuff, I guess, on the sleeves. And I was thinking about it, and I was like, you know, it really doesn't look quite as finished. And the armhole was quite large. And I was like, you know, I should really add some ribbing to that and kind of finish it off and try and close up the armhole. And I was going to be going to a family function. Actually, I went last weekend. I think it was last weekend, yeah. And so I was like, that's a great opportunity to finish it off and wear it. So I did go ahead and just added some ribbing to my armhole, or the, I don't know, your arms or sleeves. Now, I will say I had cast off. So this was a cast off edge. I didn't undo the probably should have undone the cast off edge. I didn't even think about it. I just picked up. So you can see on the inside there's a bit of a ridge. But I don't think it's that noticeable. I think it's fine. And yeah, it closed up the armholes. They're still a little gapey. I still, no matter what, will always wear something underneath. Those at the back. Yes, this is the front. I will always wear something underneath anyways, just because it's so, like, knit at such a loose gauge. So I just wear a little cream colored tank top underneath. But yeah, love it. There's a reason that this pattern is so very popular. So it's got quite a bit of ribbing at the bottom, actually. Twisted rib. And that's what I did on the cuffs too. I did twisted rib to match. So yeah, finished it off. And as mentioned, got a compliment on it yesterday. Okay, so that's that. Just trying to think what else is next. Okay, I don't want to forget anything. Okay, I'll give you an update on my solar natural dye experiments. So I did go ahead and, firstly, thank you so much to all those who recommended some solutions to the fact that my dyeing wasn't going quite as expected. One viewer commented and suggested that I add some baking soda to the jar that had the avocado pits and skins in it to try and speed up the process of breakdown. I did that and it did work. I still didn't end up, you'll see, I still didn't end up with quite the color I was envisioning, but it definitely gave me color. And then another viewer and Instagram friend mentioned that when she did hers, she used like a aluminum, I don't know if it's like pie plate or whatever, she put aluminum underneath the jars. And so that when you set them outside in the sun, it just reflects more light and potentially more heat to the jars to get them hotter. So I did that as well. I used a big turkey pan, aluminum, just one of those ones, disposable ones, aluminum ones, and put my jars in that. And so, yeah, tried to speed up the process. So I'll show you what I ended up with. They're still a little damp. I took them out yesterday and washed them and then hung them, but they're still a little damp. So this is the onion skins. So you see there's lots of tonality to that. There's also lots of places where the dye barely took. Like you'll see it did take. It's not the original color, but it didn't take as well. So this is what it looks like in the skein. This was just a pile of onion skins. As I mentioned, I have no idea how many I put in here. And then this is the avocado, which turned out like this like pinky beige color, which is quite pretty too. And so just for reference, I'll show you what the original undyed color was. There. So definitely got color. Definitely got color out of that. But you can see in this one here, it's not much color in some spots. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with it overall. I'm interested to see how this is going to end up. I think I'm going to use this in a blanket that I plan on making with a lot of natural dyed colors. I'll probably use this one too, actually. One thing I did notice is it smells, and it's not from the onion skins or the avocados. I'm pretty sure it's from, because this is a superwash yarn, whatever treatment they did on it, it just smells chemically. Don't like it. Even with the wool wash, I still smell it. It's kind of smelly, but maybe it'll come out with more washing. So yeah, that's that. I don't know if you want to see it outside of the skein, like in the yarn. It's really pretty rust color. So I'd definitely be up for trying it again. Maybe starting a little sooner instead of waiting, like, because it really took a long time. I think this was outside for, what did I say, 9 weeks about? That's a long time. But we didn't get very consistent, warm, sunny days, which you obviously need for solar dyeing, so yeah. Anyways, it was fun. Okay, so that's the update on my solar natural dyeing. Alrighty, so now I'm going to talk about some dream knitting. I don't know about you, but I get very inspired by podcasters when I'm watching them, or on Instagram. If I see something, I get really like excited about knitting things sometimes. So I think all three of my dream knitting are related to, actually these ones are specific to podcasters. I was watching Miga of Skeins of Dreams podcast, which I've mentioned several times. Excellent podcast. Miga's always making something so so gorgeous and inspiring. And she was at the time knitting a pattern called the Gaja pullover. I think she was test knitting it. I think it was a Gaja pullover. There's also the Gaja cardigan. So there's two different versions of the same, but it's just so pretty. I'm going to pop in a picture so you can see what it looks like. I was oohing and awing over it, and I was like, I have to knit that. I just love I love the detail in the sleeves. So Mika was so kind and so generous, and she actually gifted me the pattern when it was released. She actually got me the pattern, and I was like, that is so, so sweet. So now I definitely have to knit it. I'm not casting on right away. As I mentioned, all of my smaller cable needles are filled up right now, so I can't cast it on because it is knit with, I believe, fingering weight yarn. But I did go through my stash, and I think I'm going to use this for it, which is another Holstgarn Super Soft. This color is called Nougat, and it's a white, but it's like, it's got like kind of like a gray. There's grays in it. It's like white and gray, you can kind of see. And I just thought it would look really pretty because I think the details, the lace or cables will show up really nicely in this color. So I think that's what I'm going to use. So that's one thing that I'm thinking of knitting. And then Selma of the Little Big Knits podcast, which I've talked about numerous times as well. Wonderful podcast. Go check it out if you haven't already. I'll put links down below to all the podcasts I mentioned too. She just finished her Tulip Guernsey, and that is stunning as well. Very beautiful. It was like a sleeveless, would you call it a tank top? Really pretty with some lace across the chest. Really lovely pattern, and I really want to make that one as well. That one might wait because it's more of a summer knit, so I might have to wait. I don't have a lot of summer yarns in my stash, so I'd have to look for the correct yarn for that one. But that's another one. Pop a picture in so you can see what I'm talking about. And then the third one that I really find the crossover type tops. I have a dress that's like a crossover. Is that what it's called? I don't even know what I'm trying to say here. Where one side goes over the other and then you tie it underneath the bust, basically. I find that look looks really, really flattering on me, and I'd been looking for a top to knit that's like that. And Casey of Young Folk Knits, another wonderful podcast. Highly recommend you check her out if you haven't before. She just finished making a top. The name is totally escaping me. I will put it here. It's literally that. It's a sweater that you knit. It's long sleeved, and it's got like a crossover and a long tie that you knit and tie underneath your bust. And it looked gorgeous on Casey. So yeah, I would really like to knit that myself as well at some point. And that's more of a wintry knit. It's pretty. Actually, that would look really cute and knitted in too. That might be another idea. I have some brown sweaters quantity of brown knitted in that I might use for that. Yeah, so there we go. Those are my dream knitting, totally inspired by other podcasters. I'm easily influenced over here, and I'm not ashamed about it. Not one bit. Okay, so with that, I'm gonna start a new segment to my podcast, and it's gonna be called Spreading the Love. Spread the love. Yeah. So I don't know. I just realized, I used to do this before, where I'd talk about podcasts and the knitting community is such a wonderful community, and I feel like we all try really hard to lift each other up and to support one another. And I just think it's so wonderful. It's such a great thing. So the Spread the Love is going to be a segment where either I'm recommending some podcasts, maybe I'm going to try and focus on those that are, perhaps lesser known with smaller following numbers or or newer podcasts perhaps. And then I might do some giveaways to spread the love as well. And so I think for this first segment, I'm going to do a giveaway. So I would like to pay it forward, if you will, and gift a pattern to one lucky viewer. So in order to enter this giveaway, all you have to do is just let me know what you would like, what pattern you want to knit. What's your dream knitting? You can list several if you'd like. I'm always looking for more inspiration because, yeah, you know I need it. But yeah, if you'd like to leave a comment down below and just let me know what one or many of your dream knitting plans are, I will do a random comment picker and pick somebody and gift them a pattern over on Ravelry. So that's that, and I will also do 3 podcast recommendations today. And so this time they're all from North America actually. 2 are Canadian, 1 is American. So we'll start with the lovely Sophie of Cozy Meadow Knits podcast. Sophie is just a wonderful person. She's just all around super genuine, sweet, just super bubbly personality. She's just so supportive and wonderful. I adore Sophie and I love watching her podcast. So her podcast, Cozy Meadow Knits, is filmed in New Brunswick, where she's from, in Canada here. And Sophie's always making something beautiful. Right now, she's making the Orbits sweater by, I think it's Unwind Knitwear, Rachel Ilsley, which is a Colorwork sweater that is just beautiful. She's doing it in purple and white, I believe, or maybe a light gray. I can't remember now. It just looks beautiful together. Whatever the 2 color combination that she's using is gorgeous. And she has plans to knit another pattern by Rachel Ilsley. I forget the name of it. It's escaping me now, but it's a textured yoke, and she's going to be knitting it up in this gorgeous Julie Asselin yarn that's like a tealy turquoise, and I love all things teal and turquoise. So I'm really looking forward to watching her knit that. And yeah, she's just, really great podcaster. And she does bring a lot of awareness to East Coast kind of designers and like small business owners and stuff. So like yarn dyers or project bag makers and stuff like that. So I think that's really wonderful too. So yeah, you should totally check out Cozy Meadow Knits. Okay, next podcast, sticking with the East Coast, is I think it's called the Worsted Fiber podcast. And this one takes place on Prince Edward Island, also in Canada. And it is hosted by Troy and Simone. And they work at the Belfast Mini Mills over on PEI. And so they do yarn dyeing and produce different yarns. And Troy does some designing as well, as does Simone. Actually, I knit her Winter Light Cowl last year, which is a gorgeous pattern. Highly recommend checking both designers out. And they sell yarn as well, so you can check out their website. I'll leave a link down below to their website as well, to the Belfast Mini Mill. And yeah, they're really funny, totally laid back. I really enjoy it. I just discovered their podcast recently, although they've been around for a little while. I was surprised that I hadn't heard of them before. So yeah, really great, really fun. Totally, I don't know, just feel like I'd love to hang out with these guys. They're so laid back. Anyways, yeah, highly recommend the Worsted Fiber podcast. And then finally, a new podcast that has just come out very recently. I think she's only done 2 episodes now, is Nicole of the Common Thread Fiber podcast. And Nicole is situated in Florida, so in the United States. She is an up-and-coming designer. So she's released her first pattern, the Golden Hall Shawl, I'll pop a picture in so you can see what it looks like. Beautiful shawl with big cable border. Really lovely, really lovely. And she's in the process of designing a sweater right now. And what I love about her podcast, firstly, Nicole is awesome. She's word of warning. She does, you know, drop a few F-bombs here and there. So it's a swearing friendly podcast. So I'll just give you a heads up there, but I totally am here for it. Nicole is just really well spoken and she's hilarious. I find her so funny and very articulate. And what she's doing is she's basically documenting her design process. So starting off as like a newbie designer and, you know, going through, you know, the ups and the downs and I think that's really cool because I don't know that anyone else, and maybe I'm wrong, and if I am, please leave a comment down below and let me know. I don't know that anyone else has ever done that and documented it from, you know, kind of the beginning and the working through the whole becoming a designer process. So I find that super intriguing. So I'm very much looking forward to following along on her journey. And she's just a little bit about Nicole. So she's a huge Tolkien fan. Her designs so far have been kind of inspired by Tolkien, Lord of the Rings. She's also a self-professed D&D nerd, I guess. She likes Dungeons and Dragons, and I think she was talking about this critical, what was it called? Critical Role sweater that she's gonna knit that has like is it like the 20-sided dice or 10-sided dice on it? Sorry, I'm not a D&D player, but I know that the dice have more sides than 6 than a regular dice. But anyway, she's knitting this, going to be knitting this sweater that she's going to put these dice across the yoke. It's a Colorwork sweater. And she's planning on wearing that to her first D&D session, which I think is so great, so fun. Anyways, yeah, if you are interested in following along on a newbie designer's design process, or if you have a love for all things nerdy and geeky, you'll really appreciate her. So you should definitely check her out. And that's the Common Thread Fiber Podcast, knitting podcast. Okay, so I think that's it for all of the knitting chat. So I will go into a few life updates. But if you're going to leave us now, thank you so much for sticking around and checking out my podcast. And as always, if you did like this podcast, I would highly appreciate it if you gave it a like and made sure to subscribe so you don't miss any of my future podcast episodes. And okay, so in terms of life stuff, as I mentioned, we had a family function to go to. We actually drove down to Guelph. It was about 4.5, 5 hour drive from here, Sudbury. And it was my first time driving, like myself driving to Guelph, which was interesting. There was a lot of back country roads, which was actually kind of nice. Seeing all the farms. I should have taken, oh no, I was driving. I can't take video. It would have been really cool to see. Lots of farmland and cows and horses and stuff like that. So it was a really lovely drive. So it was myself, my partner John, his father, so my father-in-law, and our youngest daughter Lily, the 4 of us. And we went down to Guelph for a celebration of life, which was given by my partner's sister on behalf of their uncle that had passed away earlier in the year. It was a really lovely celebration. I've never been to a celebration of life before, and it was really great. It was so nice to hear all the stories. Unfortunately, I didn't really get to know the uncle. I had only met him the one time. But he apparently had a really exciting life. He was, even in his 80s, he was out sailing. He had his own sailboat. He would go out sailing. He used to race. He won tons of awards. He was a skier, downhill skier, cross-country skier, had tons of friends. It was just really great to hear all the stories, and I felt like I kind of got to know him. It was very nice, very nice. And so we didn't really do much while we were there because we weren't there for very long. It was literally just a weekend, and the drive was so long. It was like, most of the day, and by the time you get there you're tired and just want to chill. But we stayed in a hotel that had a pool, so we took advantage of that. Did a lot of pool swimming, and then we drove back, and now I've been off this past week, and so I've been using that time to get things in order. I've done a bunch of house cleaning, not very fun stuff. I had to take my daughter back to school shopping. We did that yesterday. Got some new clothes and a new laptop because she broke her not even a year-old one, which she dropped on the floor and smashed the screen, and then they couldn't get a replacement part for it. Anyway, so it was a bit of a costly trip. But she's promised me that she will not break this one, and I invested in a 2-year warranty just to make sure we at least get 2 years out of this one. But I want to say I have to mention this just in the event that it actually saves somebody in the future from getting duped. So we went to, I don't know if it's okay to answer, I'm gonna name the store. It was Best Buy, and went to buy a laptop. It was just myself and my daughter, and the gentleman who helped us, was like, I'm like, I just need something pretty basic. She's only going into grade 7. This isn't like high school or university or anything like that. We don't need anything fancy. We just need something she can do her work on. And so he pointed me to, an affordable, or relatively, I guess, still expensive no matter what, but, one of the cheaper models. And so whatever, I'm like, okay, perfect, sounds great. And he's like, well, it doesn't really come with anything on it. Like, you don't get I don't know, when you used to get a computer, and maybe it's been a while since I've bought one in store, but you used to get things on it like, Microsoft Word and Excel and all those, the Microsoft package, or you would get, video players. Anyways, there'd be things installed on it. Now it doesn't come that way. You basically get Microsoft Edge, and then whatever they have, but you don't get any of the I want to say apps, but they're not really apps. You know what I'm talking about, right? Okay. Anyways, so it comes bare minimum, basically. It has nothing on it. So we get to the checkout, and the guy's like, okay, it's going to be $249 to get all of the programs installed on the computer. And I was like, what? Wait, what? What? What's this extra $249 for? And he's like, oh, to get Google on there, and Google Chrome, and VLC player, and if you want the Microsoft package stuff. And I'm like, well, she's like, we don't use Word. Apparently they don't even use it. I use it for my work, but she doesn't use it at school. Apparently they use Google Chrome, and they just do everything through Google now. So she didn't need all that stuff. So then I'm like, well, Google. I'm like, you're installing Google? Like, what? He's like, oh, it puts icons on the desktop, so you can, just click on them, and they'll all just be right there for you. And I was like, whoa, wait a minute. Like, I don't know a ton about computers, but I know that I know how to access Google, and I know how to create a desktop shortcut to things. So I sure as heck do not need to pay $249 for you to essentially create shortcut links on a desktop. So I was like, no, we're not doing that, sorry. And he's like, oh, but antivirus, you're not gonna have any antivirus. We also install the antivirus, that's worth $160. And I'm like, nope, we're good. My partner's a techie, we do not need this, we're good. So word to the wise, if you go to Best Buy, apparently all their computers come with nothing on them, and they try and charge you $250 to put icons on your desktop. So please, you can Google these things. You can, if you have a phone, a smartphone, you can use that to Google how to install these things onto your computer. You do not need them to do it. It's super easy, and it's all free. So I just had to share that, because I was like, Lily was like, oh my gosh, Mom, we should just pay the money, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. They're duping us here. So she learned a good lesson too, because we went home and she immediately Googled it herself. She looked up exactly how do I install Google Chrome, and she did it all herself. These are things that they take advantage of us because we're not always technically inclined, and we don't always know, especially I find with women. I think it's a little bit sexist. I think it's like when you go to a mechanic or a car mechanic, and they try and upsell you all this other crap, and you're like, if I were a dude, you wouldn't even be suggesting this shit. Like, honestly, anyways, it kind of pissed me off. So in the end, we saved ourselves $250, but I didn't end up spending another $200 for this 2-year warranty just in case she drops her computer. But I figured that was a good investment because it's very likely that she's going to drop her computer. I'm just saying. The poor kid, she has my genes. She's a klutz, just like me. Anyways, so that's that. The other thing I want to mention is I'm going to be taking a beginner pottery class, which I'm super excited about. I've never done pottery before. So my friend and I signed up for a 5-week course. It's every Saturday for 2 hours in the morning, and starting September 24th, I think. Yeah. So for the 5 following Saturdays. And I'm really excited about it. So that'll be a new craft that I'm trying out. So yeah. Anyways, I don't think there's anything else to talk about. This has been a really long episode. Thank you so much if you stayed to the end. I really do appreciate it. And if you have stayed to the end, don't forget, of course, to enter the giveaway. And do share what you're working on. I'd love to know what you are working on right now. What's bringing you joy? I always love reading things that are uplifting and inspiring. And of course, you know, if you're trying a new craft, I'd also love to know that. That would be wonderful. I love to hear all about all the crafts. So I think I'll leave it there. It's starting to get really loud out here. Hopefully you can't hear all the background noise. And I hope that you have a wonderful next 3 weeks filled with lots of making. Bye, everyone.